much of a slope, but you'll see that even replanted along with the slope so that when it rains, like it did on Friday, and we have a river running through, the river runs out of our field and does not catch against the plants to hold that moisture up against their root system. Lavender is incredibly drought tolerant and very sensitive to water, so the number one killer of lavender is overwatering it. If it turns brown, you have given it way too much water. That is its sign. It'll start down at the trunk and it'll work its way up to the top leaves, and as it turns brown, that is back off on its water. Most lavender like to be in the ground better than in a pot. If you need to put lavender in a pot, the ones we recommend are the English lavender. The reason is because the overall size of the plant is just going to be smaller. So the English only get about 18 inches. Sometimes they'll hit 24, but their root system is also more compact, and so you need that for being in a pot. Lavender does not like their roots scrunched. They want to be able to spread out. French lavender will not grow in a pot. I can't even tell you how many times I've tested it. So what we do here at Hill Country Lavender is I test everything before I sell anything to y'all. So every plant that we have over there, I have personally grown and can answer questions on it because I want to set y'all up for success, not set y'all up for failure by me not knowing how to handle it myself. So French lavender will grow in a pot beautifully for the first 2 years of its life. And almost to the day that you put it in that pot, that it'll all of a sudden just die. And it'll die overnight. And we can't exactly figure out what it is, but I'm thinking it's the size of its root system, because as big as they are on top, their roots can be up to double that size under the ground. And I think they do not like their roots contained. Lavender also likes to put its roots out, and they will grow these little star patterns up the side of your pot where they're actually touching the edge of the pot. So what kind of pot you pick is also very important. You don't want any metal or any plastic. Those guys will burn their little roots because they're touching the side, and we get so hot here in Texas. So natural materials only. So you want cork or wood or ceramic or terracotta. Any of those are great for putting lavender into. What? Clay spray. Yes. Clay is absolutely, honestly, my most recommended. That's what we put all of ours in. All around our house are all in clay. Yeah, that works the best. You can do one in cork, but my parents were potters growing up. I like it. That's my happy place. So, any questions for me so far? Yes, ma'am.
As far as like harvesting, which variety is good for eating, collecting oils?
Great question. So the French lavender is typically what you use for culinary. The reason being is it doesn't have quite as much oil in its bloom, so it won't taste so much like soap when you're cooking with it. It's a little softer in its flavor profile. Also, if you grind up the buds and don't cook with the whole bud, if you grind them up like in a mortar or pestle or in a coffee grinder, it softens the flavor and makes it a little smoother.
Okay.
For oil, you can use two different varieties. You can either have the French lavender or you can do the English lavender. Your English lavender is going to have a much sweeter oil. Your French lavender is going to be earthier. It's going to be a little more grounded. It's going to have a little more camphor in it.
Okay.
So they're very different scent profiles. We make all our products with the French lavender because I like that earthy smell personally.
Okay.
The sweetness gets too sweet for me of the English, but either one can do it. And you're probably going to have a little higher oil yield from your French just because of the size of the plant. I mean, you're getting a plant this big producing blooms versus a plant this big producing blooms.
Okay.
So that makes a difference on how much oil you're getting. But you can also fit twice as many of these in the field as, you can fit twice as many English as French. So your overall for a field, you'll probably get a similar amount of oil just because of the difference in the plant.
I've always thought English was the one that is for culinary, so it's a way around.
So English has so much more oil in the bloom, it typically will taste like soap very quickly.
Okay.
Or if you're going to cook with it, you want to dial the recipe back significantly. So say they say a tablespoon, maybe start with like a half a tablespoon.
Okay.
You want to cut it back so that you're and then taste it as you're going, because you don't want to just go full with the English. It'll get soapy very quickly.
Okay, one more thing.
Yeah,
as far as like harvesting it, do you harvest it right when they open, or they're still closed?
So we're a little different here at the farm versus what we do at our house. For our house, we usually open it when, so lavender has these little rings of blooms as they go up it. They're not one big bloom. They've got these little rings of blooms that go all the way up the top of the bloom. We usually harvest it right when the middle ring is open. That way you can get enough, the top part hasn't opened yet, but it's open enough that you still get the oil out of it.
Okay.
If you harvest too early, then you're not gonna get the full release of the oil for the whole stem. Here in the field that we let people cut on, we're gonna harvest a lot later because we're letting people go out and actively be involved in our field and cut their own. And so this field does not get harvested the same way as the field at home does.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome, my pleasure. And then you're also gonna, stem length is gonna be dictated by three things. It's gonna be dictated by the plant. So your English stem is gonna be a much shorter stem. Your French stem typically is gonna run a lot longer, but your French stem is also gonna be dictated by the amount of rain and the amount of sun. So if you are very, very dry before they start blooming, your stem is always going to be shorter. Your bloom is also going to be shorter. If we've had more rain, then the bloom's going to be stretched out longer, and the stem's going to be taller. So it's interesting to watch the plants very much change the way they are depending on the bloom. And groundwater does not affect the bloom like rainwater does. Groundwater changes nothing on the plant. It doesn't bloom more, it doesn't bloom less, so it does not help you to give them a bunch of extra water right before they bloom because it won't change anything. Rainwater does. It's the nitrogen and everything in the rainwater that actually helps the bloom change. All the fun details I've learned in a lot of years. Do you have a question? Okay. Thank you. Any other questions over here?
I do. I have
Yes.
one.
Yeah. Yes, we do. So what we do is typically they will tell you they're gonna go by they won't bloom. So plants have a blooming cycle that's a little shorter than your lifespan. Sorry, it's day 3. Lifespan cycle. So usually about a year before they start graying out and going downhill, they won't bloom at all. And so that for us is an indicator of the age and stuff that, oh, hey, we need to pay attention to this. On average, we usually probably always replant about 10 to 15% of our field, just because in the nature of the beast and Texas weather, you're always going to lose something. But that is typically our average of what we're putting in the field every year. And so when this next year and the year after, we're going to be keeping a closer eye on it because we'll be hitting 11 and 12 years on those. And so we might have to do a little bit more planting, but we're always putting new babies in the ground every single year. We usually do some in the spring and some in the fall. There was another question over here? Okay. There was a question over here? Yes, sir.
Yeah. I have 2 questions.
Absolutely.
If I'm planting lavender in a pot
Yes.
in the Bernie year,
Yes.
come winter time, do I have to move that into a greenhouse?
No, you do not. So the biggest thing about a lavender in a pot is you've got to remember a couple of things. One, those roots are exposed because you're lifted up in the air. So the biggest thing with lavender in pots is you want to wrap the bottom of the pot. You want to wrap its roots. You just don't want its roots to get too cold. The plant on top, if you're doing either the English, well, you can't do the French, but if you're doing the English, they can handle really cold temperatures. I mean, we got down to 15 this year, and mine were fine as long as I wrapped their root system. It's keeping their roots warm is the most important part.
How did you wrap it?
I just put a big sheet around them. Yeah, or row cover works great. You can buy row cover off of Amazon. Just wrap them with row cover. Any of those. You just want to give them a little insulation so that their roots aren't exposed. The other thing with lavender in pots is you want to give them more water because you also have their roots exposed and they're up and they're going to have air circulation around them and they're going to be drying out. So we water our pots a lot more than we water what's in the ground. Once our plants are established in the ground, we water once every 2 weeks. So after the first year of their life, they get watered once every 2 weeks. In a pot, we water every couple of days.
Can you use a wicking barrel for that?
I don't know what a wicking barrel is.
Okay, skip that.
Okay, sorry, that one.
No.
We use a drip system, and I water for 5 minutes every other night.
Okay, and second question.
Yes. It's okay.
Yeah, given the amount of rain that y'all have had,
Yes. We've had
What do you
6.
think the performance is going to be come June or July?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure. They are all showing indications of standing up shoots. All of them have got the green fluff on the plants. They're starting to do the little. So with the bloom, they come out, like the leaves get taller, and then they'll send out a stem out of the center of the leaf cluster is how they bloom. And all of them right now are starting to extend their leaf clusters up, which typically means they're going to send a shoot up. The rain, I'm not as worried about. It's the sun. We need like a good 2 weeks of sunshine, which I know in Texas is not what we normally ask for. This year is a little odd. I'm like, we could use a little more sun. So until I get some sun, I'm really not sure what they're going to do. I do think if they bloom, it's going to be end of June, early July before they actually start doing it. Because it takes them about 2 weeks from the time that they start sending their shoots up to when they're actually opening. So it takes them a moment to get through their full cycle.
So just call and ask.
Oh, we will post it on the homepage of our website and all over social media as soon as we know more. But yeah, it's just she just keeps raining and she keeps being cloudy, and I'm not sure what to do with it. It's so unusual for Texas at this time of year. The fact that we can stand here and I'm standing in sun and not just drenched in sweat says a lot for us right now. So, any other questions for me?
Do you have any special diseases or insects or pest infestations you'll have to battle sometimes?
Yes.
And what would those be? How do you battle them?
So, the main things that bother lavender are going to, well, here in our area, is going to be armadillos, just because it's not that they're actually care anything about the lavender. They want the earthworms that are down in the root system. And so they will dig down into my roots. So that's one we have to deal. Every once in a while, a fire ant mound will decide that a lavender plant is its perfect home and will build all the way up to the top of the plant. Like it uses the plant as a structure. Those are pretty much the two main pests we have around here that bother ours. I know other farms have had problems with like gophers digging up lavender and hogs digging up lavender. The only critter I know that actually eats lavender are goats. Deer really don't like it, but goats don't care. Goats will eat anything, right? So yeah, they eat lavender too, especially the younger plants. They don't like the bigger, more mature plants because their leaves get rougher, but the younger, tender plants they will happily nibble on. As for funguses, yes, we do get funguses in our lavender. The main one we get is something called cotton root rot. It's what took out the cotton crops in the 1950s. Its real name is Phyothrapa. It basically what it does is lavender has it has several big trunk roots, so they're going to be the thicker hard roots, and then it sends off all these little fibrous roots that pick up all the moisture, and that's what makes them so drought tolerant, is because of how many little fibrous roots that are soaking up every ounce of moisture that is anywhere. And the fungus comes in, and the fungus does not attack the trunk root. The fungus eats all the little fibrous roots, so you don't know your plant is affected until it's already taken out a huge part of its root system, because those plants are so drought tolerant, it won't tell you that its roots are in trouble until that part of the plant is almost already dead and there's nothing you can do for it. So that's the main fungus that gets in there. If you water through the leaves, you can also get some funguses just because on the actual leaves. So we always water around the outside or use drip tape down at the bottom just to keep all that out of there and not invite any chance of it coming into our plant. But those are the main things that will do it. People always ask, do snakes really like lavender? I mean, I've seen one in my field, and it's not like it's trying to live in a plant. He just happens to be passing through. He's a garden runner. He's like this long. His name is Fred. He randomly likes to show up and scare the crap out of me. We have a relationship. We also have a road runner that lives with us. He's great. I think he might be the reason I haven't seen Fred in a while, but that's okay. The roadrunner is so friendly. We were actively mowing the field, and he was following the mower because my husband was hitting bugs with the mower, and he was eating the bugs that were getting mowed over behind him, and he just followed my husband through the field eating bugs. And I was like, okay, we haven't named him yet. Somebody's gonna have to come up with a good name for the roadrunner. But yeah, we have.
What do you do about the armadillos, or is there any? What do you do about the armadillos, or is there anything?
Oh, there's nothing. You just go along and with every once in a while I walk through the field and shove dirt back in the holes.
Okay.
If the plants are big, they really won't be a problem. It's when they pop my babies out of the ground that the armadillo and I have we have some words. Because that means my baby is dead and I got to put another one in the ground, which means I have to bend over again and put another baby in the ground. And that's really the only reason I'm mad at the armadillo. I'm tall and the ground is really far away, and it's a lot of work to put babies in the ground. So, we maybe get like 6 or 7 plants a year that they mess with. It's not.
Okay, so it's not rampant.
Yeah, it's not rampant. So, hogs, there's nothing you do with hogs. I mean, they just are. We're very lucky we don't have many in this part of the area, but they can affect them too in other parts of Texas. So. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. So yes, the smell of lavender does help with mosquitoes. Plants will do some, but there's only so much. I mean, when you're in air that's this open, there's only so much lavender plants can do. Using lavender on yourself, like using essential oil or lavender lotion or a bug spray or something that has lavender in it, will make a huge difference. But it's mainly the smell of lavender that'll help it. It'll also keep scorpions away if you use lavender in your house, so like in a diffuser or put some in your windowsill. They've been using it for hundreds of years in France to keep scorpions out. They've got some big old scorpions over there. Ours look like little cute baby ones. But it does make a huge difference. I notice at our house when I have not used the lavender in our house in a while, I'll notice some scorpions, and the moment I have it out and about, they go away. It's not that they kill them, they just don't like it and they won't come and hang out with you. So, works for me. Any other questions before we walk over to the big field? Yes, sir.
What about raised beds?
You can absolutely do raised beds. They're a lot of work. And for us here, our soil, it does not help us enough for our soil. Our soil drains really well. And typically when you're doing raised beds is when your soil doesn't drain as well. And so for the amount of labor versus reward, it doesn't work for us here. But if you're somewhere where you're going to need to help encourage drainage, then it's a great option. Yeah. Any other questions for me before we walk over there? We'll talk about spacing and the drip tape and pruning and all that good stuff. If y'all
Here.
want to walk over to the other side, we can see the big plants.
On the other side.
Okay, cool. So in this field over here, we laid it out a little different. Instead of doing all one variety, we have it split between phenomenal and sensational. So starting at the bottom of the field and working up the hill, it's every 2 rows. So it'll be 2 rows of phenomenal, 2 rows of sensational, phenomenal, sensational, phenomenal, sensational, all the way up to the top. The reason we did that is because the blooms are a slightly different color. Your phenomenal lavender is going to be a little more pale purple. Your sensational lavender is going to be a little darker purple. And so when it blooms, it does this really cool wave of color throughout the field. We did that intentionally just to get a visual effect with it. We also mix our phenomenal and our sensational when we make our products and when we distill our oil. So we didn't have to worry about keeping them separated in one field versus another for when we harvest. You will notice that how much bigger these plants are. This is because the soil is deeper. You will also notice that some of these plants have gray in them. This is the cotton root rot. This is what it does to a plant. It eats the fungus. A lot of times on it, it will only take out one part of a plant and it won't take out the whole plant because it's only attacking that little part of the root system. So what we do is we don't come in and cut the dead part out of the plant. We wait until it's ready, and every once in a while you'll just come wiggle and it'll release it right out of the plant. And so by doing that, it lets itself heal on that part of the plant, and it will not let any other funguses down into that part of the plant because it's already healed itself over. And so it basically self-heals. The one really cool thing we've noticed about phenomenal and sensational is they fill in a lot. So you'll notice some of these plants right here are kind of odd shapes. That is because they have released chunks of plants and they have regrown with more leaves and more life. These are the only plants we've ever had that do that. When we used to grow Provence back in the day, they did not do that. Once a plant got fungus in it, that whole plant was gone and you had no chance of recovery with that plant. The phenomenal and sensational are really cool because they actually will go back and fill themselves in. They never will be a perfect ball. They'll never look like a pom-pom again, but they will be a continuing blooming and producing plant. So that has been a really awesome thing. When we plant from center of plant to center of plant, depending on your soil depth. If you know your soil's deep, you're going to want to make that spacing 48 inches. If you know your soil is shallower, you're going to want 36 inches between center of plant to center of plant when you're planting your babies. The reason being is they get really big, and now it will take them 3 years to reach their full size. They'll go from a baby to about this size the first year, second year, and then third year they do a big growth. They almost double in size every time they grow for a year. So there is a point where they will stop growing, about 4 or 5 is when they finally reach their max size. But from year 3 to year 4 to year 5, it's just a little bit of growth. It's like another inch or two, not putting on massive growth. For us, when we put plants in the ground, we start watering every other day for the first couple of months of their life, usually 2, and we do that. And then we do not cut their water, we wean them off of their water. So we'll go to every 3 days for 2 weeks, and then we'll go to every 4 days for 2 weeks, and then we'll go to every 5 days for 2 weeks. And when we hit once a week, we'll leave that for the first year of their life. At the end of year 1, we will then go to once every 2 weeks. And that is what they do. The reason being is we're trying to get them a big, happy, healthy root structure so that they can be able to handle what Texas throws at them. Because we get very hot and very cold and very dry and very wet, and we don't have normals, we have berries. And so we're trying to make sure their roots are good for those berries. We use a drip tape. Our drip tape is going to be a hard drip tape. In our old field we use a drip line. In our old field, we use a drip tape. The reason the tape is flat and soft and bendy, the reason we don't use that is because bunnies love to be up in the lavender, and the bunnies eat the drip tape. So then you get geysers in your field, and you'll turn on the water system, and it'll just shoot water everywhere, and you have to go try to fix that. The drip tape, the drip line, they really don't mess with, and the best thing is it has built-in emitters. So there's little individual emitters spaced every 18 inches apart is what we use. You can also get 24 inches apart, 36 inches apart, 48 inches apart. We use the 18 because our English lavender needs to be spaced 18 inches apart, and we don't want to have to buy more than one style of drip tape. So it's more about laziness than anything else. We also stretch our drip tape before we plant so that we plant our lavender on those emitters versus trying to make the tape match the emitters. So we pull a line of drip tape and then we'll go and plant in with that. It's how we keep our spacing equal and we don't have to pull every measurement. We also usually do about 6 foot between row of lavender and row of lavender. If your soil's deeper, you're going to need to extend that a little wider. Having grass in between your rows is a good thing. It helps take some of the moisture out of it for the really rainy times, and it helps keep some of the moisture in for the really dry times. So grass is not a bad thing for lavender. You just don't want it growing right up next to it. So we just weed up right around each one. We just run a mower down each row, and that's why we space our rows the way we do, is so we can fit a mower down them. If we had known these plants were going to get quite this big, we would have probably made these rows a little further apart. But we bought a little baby mower to fit down it, special. We found the tiniest mower we could find that's a riding lawn mower because you don't want to do this by hand. We already have to run a weed eater by hand. I'm trying to think pruning. So we prune our lavender plants once a year, except for harvesting off blooms. Harvesting blooms is different. Usually we harvest blooms whenever they bloom out. So usually sometime in early July is when we would typically harvest, when lavender is typically blooming right now. Then for pruning, we come in either January or February, and basically we're just giving it a little haircut. We're only taking off a little bit of that outside growth. You do not ever want to cut back into the woody part of the plant. That will damage the plant. So basically you're taking about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. We use a cordless hedge trimmer, go all the way around the outside, do the top. It helps it keeps its shape. It helps them maintain a little bit smaller size so that they don't break open, because if they get too big, they will literally split their trunk and break open, and you don't want them to do that. So giving them a little haircut and a little prune does a really good job on all of that. And if you hit really warm weather, you've already gone too far and you can't prune that because they've already started their warm-up cycle and you don't want to prune on them once they've started their warm-up cycle. Any other questions for me so far? Yes, ma'am.
When do you start pruning? Like what's the age of the plant?
Usually we give them a full year of growth before we start pruning. So if we plant, say we plant the plants in April, I will check their size that winter. Typically they're still too small, but you want them about this big before you really start pruning. They need to have some growth on them before you start shaping. Now, if your plant for some reason has just randomly decided to send one arm up and he is just crazy and wild, I might go and prune that one arm just so that I can encourage them to be the ball. That is their natural growing shape, but shape can change that. Sometimes they get a wild hair and this one random arm just sticks up in the air and is like waving high. So I will do a little like, individual shaping, but for the most part we'll wait till we get to that next winter before we would prune them. So what we did is so my husband set up the fields. He did a V-shaped ripper, and he ripped where each line was going to be, just to get a little deeper into the soil and break it up. And then we just tilled the whole line, and then we stretched our tape, and then we planted our plants.
But you're not adding any additives into the soil itself.
We did a soil test before we ever planted, so we knew we were good on what we have in our soil for lavender. So we didn't have to do any amending. Our pH level was in the right range. I think this field was 7.8, and you want to be somewhere between 6.7 and 8 about 3 or 4 is kind of max for the range you want to be for your pH level. You also want alkaline soil. So we had all those factors good. And then we also did a sand, silt, and clay test on our soil. You want your clay below 42%, and we were right at like 38 at this field, and I think we were 32 on that field.
Do you have to have clay? Rotate fields where you like take this down to 0 and
Oh God, no, it's way too much labor.
it's not like regular what I was thinking of in my mind,
I'm filming.
Yeah. No, because of their
Oh, just give me a
lifespan, I
sec.
mean, they're living in a field between 10 to 12 years. So, I mean, I guess you could rotate a crop after that, but at that point you've already put new babies in, so no, you can just keep lavender in a field. You might need to give it a little fertilizer every once in a while. Usually we do once a year through our drip system. We just do a water in. Usually in the fall, right before we go into winter, to give them a good little drink. If you fertilize in the summer when it's hot, it can invite funguses into lavender, so we don't, because the fertilizer has a lot of nitrogen in it, and the funguses will attack the nitrogen, so you don't want to ever fertilize in the summer when it's hot. You only want to do it either early spring or fall when it cools off. So, did that answer your question? Any other questions for me?
When does it turn purple?
Typically now, but it won't. We haven't seen much sun, and we've had a lot of rain. So maybe July, maybe June. I wish Mother Nature would tell me. That would be really nice. It would save me a lot of effort. She would be like, "I'm gonna bloom this week." Actually, that'd be cool. Sorry, that'd be really cool. She could just send me a text and be like, "This is the week we're gonna start blooming." I could plan a whole festival around that. Yes, ma'am.
And what is the best lavender for Texas? Like what's the better lavender?
So if you're putting it in the ground, I recommend French. It's just a tougher plant. They handle the hot better, they handle the cold better. They're just a tougher plant. Any of the varieties we sell, we have planted actively in our field and have tried them. We do not sell anything we have not grown.
I started some from seed and they're so slow growing.
Yes. So typically, you can start lavender from seed, but to get a true lavender plant, you start from a cutting. We do not do, every single one of ours is a cutting. We do no seed. They've been crossbred for so many years, it's really hard to get a true lavender from a seed. Yeah. Any other questions for me? Yes, those are the English ones over there. So English normally blooms in May. and they're just now starting to put some blooms on. So y'all can walk over and look, but they're running a month behind. So that's why I'm thinking this might be running a month behind. Because typically they bloom very beginning of May and will bloom into early June, and these guys start in early June and go to July. I'm thinking it might be July to August. I don't know. At this point, we're gonna flip a coin, and it's just randomly gonna do what it wants. So, any other questions for me?
So variety-wise, what are your favorites that you? I know I saw the Big Time, the Munstead.
Oh yeah, for the English. So Big Time and Munstead are my two favorite. Your Munstead is gonna be a little more orderly. It's going to grow more in a perfect ball shape. It's going to have a little bit pinker purple bloom. And then your Big Time Blue, I always call him my wild child. He kind of just grows. He sometimes spills over pots. He sometimes runs. He doesn't like to be in a shape. So he's a really pretty plant. He's just a little more freeform.
Okay.
And he's going to have a little bit bluer purple flower. They're both great plants. They're both going to grow beautifully.
And
it's
then,
just whatever you want to shape. And both of those are in that part of the field.
Yeah, and then French is just, this is your top two.
Phenomenal and Sensational are by far our two favorites.
Have you tried Exceptional?
I have tried Exceptional. There's 2 rows of it, but they're only like this big right now.
Oh.
So if they do well for us this whole year, we'll probably have some for sale next year. But until I've tested them for at least a year, if not 2 years, I won't sell them because I want to be able to answer questions on them.
So those are the top 4 best ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
And all the plants that you're buying, the 2 French and those 2 English, the Munstead and Buena Vista, have been with me the whole time. So I get them as little tiny plugs and I grow them out. So they have been grown outside in this weather their entire life since I've got them. So that's since early March. So they are fully acclimatized. Like I just planted plants out in our field that were ones of the ones I grew up because they can actually then handle what we're throwing at them. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Question.
Yes.
Dolls.